Jon Zuzga with ZUMA Concepts. Today I'm bringing you a follow-up video from a previous video that I did on this particular deer blind. I've received quite a few questions, some technical questions about what I did, whether it was from the electrical hookup or the propane hookup. And I'm going to cover that along with some other details that may be on your mind and just kind of want to go over them. So if you're looking to build something like this, you'll have a little more information. The first thing I'm going to cover is going to be the controllers for the solar panel. If you look on the bottom of this controller, you see the array and battery. Obviously, you bring the battery connections into the part where it says positive negative battery, and the array is what's coming from your solar panel. As you can see, I have two different controllers here because I run two panels. I use fuses for every hotline coming in or out, and if you look at the panel, it gives you a bunch of feedback, whether it's what your battery's producing, whether it's charging, whether it's not charging. Here's another look at the second controller. It doesn't say array and battery, but has a picture of battery and a panel, and you'll see the red and black going out to the panel and yellow and black going out to the battery. And you'll see this here at the end of the video. I'm going to tie that back together and show you how that's wired up on that. Here's an Amazon screenshot. If you go to this one that I'll have linked in the description below, there's actually a video that goes with this one that gives you more details on hooking it up and explaining it. It's pretty simple. Most of them come with the instructions, but for the most part it's pretty basic. Here's the battery selector. I went with a battery selector because I wanted to be able to charge one battery while using the other battery. It's why I used two batteries in this system and two panels. You see the three wires coming in the bottom there. There's one from each battery, and this is just your positives, and then the third one goes to your power inverter. On your power inverter, there's a your ground will go directly back out to the batteries. And what this does is it picks where your heat's coming from, where your hotline's coming from, either your first battery, your second battery, or it'll let you use both batteries at the same time to that one power inverter. And there'll be instructions on the package on how to wire that up. It's pretty simple in the back. Here is the same selector I used. I'll be attaching this in the description below if you want to order the same one. I'm going to jump out and look at the battery hookup here. As you look at these are a couple of marine deep cell batteries. I just picked them up at Menards. The smaller lines coming in, that black and red on top, that's the charging coming from the controller produced by the solar panels. And the heavier black and white lines, them are going to your battery selector and then eventually to your power inverter inside. When you're shopping for these batteries, you're looking for something with a high number of amp hours. You're not looking for a cranking battery. Cranking batteries are for starting a vehicle or a boat. These are your deep cell batteries made for kind of a slow, long draw. The amp hours, it's a simple calculation. If you look at whatever it is you're running out of here and figure out what its amp draw is, you can calculate it according to that and figure out how long a battery is going to last you. So 100 amp hours is 100 constant amps for 1 hour. That's what the battery's capable of. So if you're only drawing 10 amps, you can do the math equation on how long a 100 amp battery is going to last you. In this setup, I'm going to show you a couple different battery options. This one, next one you're about to see here, the one we're looking at, I guess, is the Amazon option. And then I'll show you the Menards brand that I used, and you can see here in a second. Right here, you'll see that 170 RC. If you look this stuff up, and I usually just Google a lot of this, but if you look that up, that RC is your amp hours. Some manufacturers have a different call letter for what it is, but that's what that 170 is. And this would be a good option for what you're doing if you don't want to buy these other expensive batteries. Here's the power inverter I use. Just run an extension cord up to a puck light. That way I have lighting right inside, so I'm not worried about holding my flashlight while I'm getting things sorted out in the morning. Here's an example, some puck lights. I'll add these in, but you can use just whatever you'd like. Then back to the power inverter. I tried a bunch of different kinds of power inverters. I started with 1,000 watt because what I was trying to accomplish with this blind, I was going to use a thermostat and program it to come on at a certain time to heat the blind before my wife and kids would get there. And I tried it, but it ended up running down the batteries too much. The batteries couldn't keep up with any type of electric heat source. I would have had to put more batteries and more solar panels in, and it just got to be the point where it wasn't worth doing. So I looked at some other options for the power inverters and ended up using this 500, and I went this route because the 1000s had the really loud fan, and some of the 500s even had a loud fan, but this Energizer one is really quiet. I like it a lot. I think it's a really good option for this setup. And as you can see, there's a USB port on the front, so you can plug in your devices directly to that, or it has the 110 plugs for whatever else you might want to plug into it. Next thing I'll cover here is the small heater I ended up trying to heat the whole blind, and found out it actually worked well to defrost the windows. So I kept it around, and here's one from Menards. If you look, it's a 350 watt as opposed to the 200 watt, but still the same thing. You can find them pretty cheap if you go to Menards and shop around, especially around Black Friday time. Here's a look at the propane system that I put in. This one could be set up for propane or natural gas. It's a 10,000 BTU wall hang. It's way too many BTUs for this little blind, but I wanted to find a decent wall hanging one. And what I found is after you get it to the pilot, which is right there, and you get it started, you can slowly push that down and bring it back to the off position and really get a real decent low flame that heats the blind nicely and doesn't cook you out of there. And keep in mind, be careful with this thing. Make sure you have windows open while you're running it. You know, I don't want to see anybody get asphyxiated. The way this blind is built, it's very airtight. So just keep that in mind. There's going to be a link here for this same unit, and here it is. Notice that it's the blue flame. There's other propane units that have the orange flame or the orange comb in it. What I didn't like about the orange comb was it was so bright that it would actually cast light inside the blind and kind of illuminate your face for the animals to see you. Here's the windows. As you see, swing that open. It's just your regular old window lock is what I use to keep that closed. You notice how thick this insert is, and I'm going to cover that here in a second on why that's that thick and what I did to make it that way. But the windows swing up, and there's just a little metal clip that holds them, keep them from falling back at you. There's a double pane window. I took another piece of plexiglass, cut it to fit inside, and then put double stick tape on and put it on that way, and that actually helped quite a bit with the fog issue. I'm going to slow this down here on this bigger one. You notice these spots. This is where I drilled 1-inch holes in the back of this board so that I could spray expandable foam in. And then I built a wood frame here, brad nailed and glued it down, and then covered it with this carpet and stapled the carpet on it. Then I closed the window shut again and then sprayed the expandable foam in the back. And what that did was it molded the carpet to the shape of the inside of the window and gave a really great seal to ensure keeping the bugs and birds and critters out of there. It took a little bit of time to do, but definitely well worth it. When it's all closed up, it keeps the blind real warm. So in the morning, I mean, you don't have to get the heat going right away if you don't want to. It's a really comfortable blind and really quiet. I'm going to cover the insulation on this here too in a second. Here's a clip of the expandable foam I used. There's a lot of different options. You can probably pick them up right up at your hardware store, but this one's going to be an Amazon option, and I'll link it below. Looking at this next frame, you can see I carpeted just about every exposed piece of wood, especially where I was going to be resting a gun. And then if you look here, you're seeing the outside of a soundboard, and I wanted to show that I glued every single seam closed. every seam, every crack, and I did this on the outside, on the wood, everywhere. Around anything coming in or out of the blind was sealed. I put this 2-inch foam in between the 2x4s and I glued that in, and then I laminated this particle board here, this fiber soundboard. This was the cover piece, and that also got cut to fit and then glued in on all the seams. I used this construction adhesive. You can use just about any adhesive. There's nothing particular. I'm just gonna link this stuff so you have so you're able to just click on it if you'd like. Here's some more view of that. Then looking at this back window, if you notice, this one's gonna swing down, and this was my original design. I thought it'd be good to have it so they'd swing open and they'd stay down, but one thing I noticed is myself and my kids, we every once in a while will bump that thing with our knees and it would make a hellacious bang. So I flipped that design to go up, and that's why you see on the other ones that all the other windows open up. This one I didn't bother with. That's the back window. We usually leave that one closed to keep our head movement concealed. I used that sound dampening board as a secondary seal around the door, and the door is also insulated. Here's a look at how thick the flooring is. I used a 2-inch pink panther foam insulation on the floor. It's a little more dense, and then I covered that with the carpet. This also will be linked. And you can see how thick that was, and then I did a little bit of a carpet overhang to keep wind and sound and vibration from getting in or out of the blind. This thing's very quiet. My son and I sat and watched a football game in this thing on my laptop without headphones. We just sat and watched, and there was a 6-point out in front of us. Didn't even look at the blind. I was surprised. I actually unhooked our headphones because I wanted to see if the 6-point would do anything, and it didn't do anything. It just carried on. So it's a very effective way to soundproof this thing, especially if you got kids and a wife and whatever. They're going to be in there dinking on their phones, and you want them to still have an opportunity to get an animal. Here's a look at my mounting bracket for my solar panels. This is a little bit extensive, but I wanted to get the optimum light absorption, so I had them set directly to the 63 degrees it's recommended for this area, which if you go on Google, you can Google your location and what the way your panels should be set up. Having them at that steep angle help discharge the snow as well. But if you're doing a small system, like you're just doing like your phones or laptops or your iPad, you don't need to worry about that. You can hook it right to the ceiling. Here's showing you how I ran the wiring, and you can see how I seal everything. I seal it up tight with either silicone or glue to make sure nothing can get in this blind. Them are the quick connects that hook up to the solar panel that come with the solar panel when you buy it. Here's a look at the propane line. I just ordered a 15-foot propane line for mine. If you can't figure out what your fittings are on your propane setup, you could probably take it to your local Ace Hardware or whatever your hardware store is, and they'll sit it down with you and find all the connections you need for it. It can be tricky. Sometimes they're different depending on where you bought your propane system from. If you look here, I'm going to show you on the bottom. I put some mesh in here and then spray foamed the bottom to help keep the sound down. And that covers about all the technical data. Hopefully this video has helped you guys out, and I really appreciate your time and support. Have a safe season, guys. Thanks.